Russian Shadow Fleet ships sank with nuclear reactor components aboard, December 29th, 2025. If a headline like that gets your attention, you know how high the stakes are getting for our allies. And if you stand with Ukraine and Europe against these kinds of hybrid threats, then make sure you find out. Subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya for the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report, where we give you sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of global defense news, military tech, and strategic developments. And today we're covering an incident that just perfectly captures this escalating shadow war between the Kremlin and the West.
It really does. Our mission today is to go way beyond that headline and analyze the sinking. It's a Russian cargo vessel, the Ursa Major.
It's a very suspicious sinking.
Highly suspicious. And this isn't just about a shipwreck. What we're doing is we're using this incident to expose the Kremlin's hybrid tactics, which are getting, frankly, more and more brazen.
Right. Using what look like commercial ships for, well, everything.
Everything from sanctions evasion to active intelligence gathering, right on Europe's doorstep. And understanding this threat is absolutely critical if we want to reinforce the global response and, of course, continue our effective support for Ukraine.
Okay, let's dig in. The Mediterranean incident. The vessel is the Ursa Major, and it went down in international waters just off the coast of Spain back in December 2024.
And the timeline leading up to the sinking, I mean, it's just not normal.
Not at all.
Once it passed through the Strait of Gibraltar, Spanish maritime control noticed it was, well, erratic. On December 21st, it just starts changing course.
For no apparent reason.
None. Then on the 22nd, it veers sharply, slows right down, and just starts drifting. And here's the kicker. They wait. They wait until the 23rd to send a distress signal.
After 3 full days of this bizarre behavior.
Exactly. So when rescuers finally get there, the scene is weird. It points to something much more deliberate than, an engine fire.
They evacuate 14 crew members, which is good, but 2 engineers are just gone.
Missing. And the most telling detail, for me at least, was what the rescue teams reported.
The engine room.
The engine room was sealed tight, inaccessible. I mean, that detail alone tells you this was not just bad luck at sea.
It paints a picture of deliberate action. And then you have the captain's story, the official cargo manifest.
Which just starts to fall apart the second you look at it. Officially, he's carrying, 100 empty containers?
100 empty containers, 2 big crawler cranes, and 2 icebreaker units, all heading to Vladivostok.
Sure. But the intelligence, the rumors that started swirling almost immediately, told a very, very different story.
And this is where that headline comes from. The highly sensitive intelligence suggests the Ursa Major was carrying 2 massive reactor hatch covers.
Not just for any icebreaker. For Russia's new leader-class nuclear icebreaker, the Rossiya. That is critical strategic defense infrastructure.
And it gets even more alarming.
Oh, yeah. The deeper rumor, the one that really gets people's attention, is that it might have been carrying other nuclear reactor parts. Some whispers even suggested they were destined for North Korea.
Now, that's still high-level speculation, but the very fact that a defense-linked ship carrying this kind of cargo sinks under these circumstances, it demands a global response.
And you immediately know who you're dealing with. The owner of the vessel. Oberon Logistica.
A company directly tied to the Russian Defense Ministry.
Exactly. And their first reaction is to cry foul, to claim it was an act of terrorism. They said it was caused by 3 explosions on the starboard side.
Which, whether that's true or just a deflection, it doesn't change the facts. A key piece of the Russian military supply chain was just taken off the board, right in Europe's backyard.
And that direct defense link is where we have to pivot. To understand why this matters, you have to talk about who owns these ships. And that leads us straight to the Russian Shadow Fleet.
Which is so much more than just a bunch of old oil tankers. It's a strategic tool.
It's an instrument of economic warfare, designed specifically to get around the financial pressure that's been put on Russia since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
We're talking about the price cap coalition, right? The G7, the EU, the UK.
All of them. They put these caps in place to let Russian oil keep flowing, to avoid a huge global price spike, but at the same time, stop Moscow from making massive profits to fuel its war machine.
And those caps have been in place since early 2023. It's $100 a barrel for premium products and $45 for discount fuel oil.
Right. And the rule is simple. If you buy Russian oil above that price, you lose access to all Western services, insurance, finance, shipping.
So the Shadow Fleet is basically Russia's workaround.
It is. And the fact that it's so huge is, paradoxically, a sign that the price cap is actually working against the legitimate shipping industry. The Kremlin was forced to build this network of aging, poorly insured vessels registered in, countries that don't ask too many questions.
And the fact that Oberon Logistica, the defense logistics company, is using this fleet shows it's not just about oil money anymore.
No, it's about creating this opaque, parallel supply chain. A way to move critical military and dual-use components, like those alleged reactor parts, completely under the radar.
So it bypasses the very sanctions designed to support Ukraine's defense.
It does. And it forces the West to carry the risk. These ships are an environmental nightmare waiting to happen. They're a safety hazard, and that drives up insurance premiums for everyone. It's a hidden cost Russia is forcing the entire maritime industry to absorb.
But it's so much more sinister than just economics. And that brings us to the most alarming part of this, the hybrid warfare, the espionage.
This is where we have to talk about Moran Security.
Okay.
It's a private security firm. The U.S. Treasury sanctioned them in 2024. Why? For providing armed security services to Russian state-owned companies.
And Western intelligence confirms that Moran's people have direct ties to the GRU and the FSB.
Military intelligence and state security. So you have Russian intelligence operatives hired by a private firm operating on supposedly commercial ships.
It gives the Kremlin perfect, plausible deniability.
Perfect. And the people they're putting on these ships are often veterans of Wagner or other Russian special units. And frequently, they are the only Russians on a ship with a foreign crew.
So their job isn't really security, it's supervision.
Exactly. They monitor the non-Russian captains, make sure the ships stick to the Kremlin's plan, and that plan goes way beyond just delivering cargo. A Western intelligence source confirmed that Moran personnel on one of these ships were taking high-res photos of European military bases.
So this is an active, confirmed espionage program hiding in plain sight.
And it is escalated to active disruption. You have to look at the incident with the tanker Boracay.
This was in September 2025.
Yeah. The Boracay is sailing near the Danish coast, a critical maritime choke point, at the exact same time that a series of mysterious drone sightings shut down air traffic at Copenhagen Airport.
And other drones were spotted near Danish military bases at the same time.
The timing is just too convenient to be a coincidence. So the French military boarded the Boracay off Brittany after it failed to provide proof of its registry. And guess what they found?
Let me guess. A couple of unexpected Russian passengers.
2 Russians among the crew. Now, Russia, of course, dismissed it. It said it was absurd to think a giant tanker was involved in drone flights. But a senior European intelligence official basically said the working assumption is that, quote, Russian ships have been involved in at least some of the unexplained drone events close to European coastlines.
This is classic gray zone warfare.
It's the definition of it. Aggressive moves that stay just below the threshold of an act of war. The UK has been sounding the alarm on this for a while.
Saying Russia is testing us in the gray zone.
Exactly. And it creates a huge problem for Europe. Denmark, for instance, is hesitant to just go out and seize these ships, even if they're breaking rules, because they're afraid of how Russia might retaliate.
So they need a unified approach.
They need a joint European thing, as one source put it, a coordinated naval, legal, and intelligence response. One country acting alone isn't enough to stop this.
Which is a perfect transition to our final section, the global counterstrike. The alliance supporting Ukraine knows that to fight this, you have to starve the Russian military-industrial complex, the MIC.
And the actions have been really comprehensive. The EU's export bans are a huge part of this. They expanded restrictions on all sorts of dual-use and advanced technologies.
Stuff that has a commercial purpose but is also vital for making weapons.
Right. We're talking industrial robots, turbojets, electronic circuits, rare earth metals. These are the guts of modern missiles, drones, and yes, even nuclear icebreakers.
And they're not just banning items, they're targeting the companies.
96 entities added to the EU's restriction list because they directly support the MIC. And crucially, that list includes 7 Iranian entities that are supplying the Shahed drones being used against Ukraine.
It's a global net they're casting.
And it's starting to produce real results that directly help Ukraine. The EUREPO task force, that's the task force for restricting elites' evasion, had a huge win.
The first successful forfeiture of assets from a sanctioned oligarch, Konstantin Malofeyev.
And this case was so important because it set a legal precedent. It allowed for the transfer of $5.4 million in his seized funds directly to Ukraine as foreign assistance.
So you have Russian money now being used to fund Ukrainian defense. It's turning their own system against them.
But the evasion tactics are constantly evolving. The U.S. has put out alerts on the red flags to watch for: shell companies, buyers who won't say what the end use is, and the classic tactic of breaking up shipments.
Right, splitting one controlled item into 5 smaller packages sent through 5 different shell companies to stay under the customs radar.
It's tradecraft. And we now know the key transshipment points they're using to get this stuff back to Russia. China, including Hong Kong and Macau, is a big one, but also Armenia, Turkey, and Uzbekistan.
But enforcement is getting tougher. The US DOJ created a disruptive technology strike force just to prosecute these cases, and the threat of secondary sanctions is clearly working.
Oh, absolutely. Look at Turkey. After the U.S. issued secondary sanctions warnings, Turkish exports to Russia dropped by 22% in just a couple of months.
So targeting the enablers, the middlemen, that works. It puts on exactly the kind of economic pressure Ukraine needs its allies to apply.
The global response is hitting them. The challenge is making sure our naval security and our counterespionage can keep up with the sheer audacity of these hybrid tactics at sea.
So let's bring this all together. What this means for you is that there's this clear and really intense core tension. On one hand, you have a massive, coordinated global effort to cripple Russia's war machine through sanctions, asset seizures for Ukraine, and tech controls. But at the same time, you have these incredibly brazen hybrid tactics, the shadow fleet, the espionage from Iran's security, and the very, very strange sinking of the Ursa Major.
And that sinking really brings it all home. A defense-linked ship carrying sensitive nuclear components highlights this dual threat from Russia's maritime operations. It's not just economic evasion anymore. It's active military intelligence. So the final question you have to ask is this. As the global alliance gets better and better at enforcing these technical sanctions, how fast can Europe and its allies pivot their naval security to counter this unconventional gray zone warfare at sea? Especially when Russia is willing to risk losing nuclear components to play these games. That's the strategic challenge facing NATO and the EU right now.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.